Yeah, Borderlands 4, it's definitely the same game, and it has way too much content. This is my response video to those who have that sort of opinion, because I've seen some content creators here and there kind of saying it's sort of the same game, or it is the same game from the previous. There's nothing different about the game. And also there's some people that do say, oh, there's so much content in this game, I hate it. Oh! So for those who don't know, I've been streaming Borderlands 4. Feel free to stop by and check out what I'm doing, because I'm just constantly exploring and just loving the overall gameplay loop in Borderlands 4. I haven't had this feeling with a shooter in a very long time, like over a decade. There's a reason why I kind of branched off from shooters. This is a looter shooter, different from the traditional shooters that you would see within the gaming industry. What I always loved about Borderlands 4 is actually the RPG elements in terms of its gameplay and its classes and the amount of things that you can do with your builds. So I always enjoyed that part, which is why it always remained in my anticipation list whether a new game of that series comes out. So with Borderlands 4, I did expect, you know, the same old traditional Borderlands gameplay. On launch, when the game initially came out, I was very surprised that the game went completely open world. Like, they weren't actually kidding, and they actually did their best on changing up the Borderlands formula. I have about almost 30 hours into the game, and what I have to honestly say about Borderlands 4 is that I don't think the game is the same game that we typically get from the past decade. This is the most ambitious Borderlands game I've initially, from what I've honestly experienced. I'm not even kidding when I say that. Although this game doesn't do anything different from other open world games, it's fine. Like, I don't think Borderlands is like the Breath of the Wild, you know, for shooters, or I don't think Gearbox is trying to be that innovative, to be honest with you. I do think, and I will give them props for this, because I also looked at a interview from Randy Pitchford, and I know there's a lot of controversy about him, that the game took about 6 years. And I completely understand why. Because there's just so much content in the game. And each of it, I'm not saying everything is like quality content, but it's good enough content to consume and for you to go through. And I think I'm like on my 11th side quest. Apparently there is 99 side quests to do. And then that's not even including the other additional exploration to the whole entire map, you exploring and kind of clearing out each zones of the map. There's all these other things that implement with the Borderlands gameplay loop that I just wouldn't initially expect. So it is baffling to me that some people say, hey, Borderlands 4 is like the same game that you would get, or just like any of the previous games, right? The game clearly has like a completely different formula that they presented themselves, but it's also the fact that it's a shooter. It's a first-person shooter. I know that they added recently like melee mechanics, and you know, with Rafa, people have been kind of rocking with Rafa, and also Amon when it comes to their melee builds. And I feel like the melee attacks and the whole melee builds have been actually much more different compared to the other Borderlands games, because there's actual melee combat in the game, which is pretty cool. It's not as super expanded, but it's there. It exists. Yeah, like, it's a first-person shooter in the end of the day at its core, and I don't know what else like you would expect, or what they can do to make something so different for a first-person shooter. I feel like they're just so limited at that point when it comes to first-person shooters, which is why I got burnt out of that genre. Which is why I got burnt out of trying to play almost every shooter out there, because at its core, for many of the other games, it's practically the same, unless I'm just missing something, right? Maybe because I haven't played many looter shooters out there, and maybe there is something better that I just have not experienced personally, or there's just some sort of mechanic I have not even thought of. So let me know if these shooters could honestly evolve, but I feel like these shooters reached its peak already. They'd done what they could have done, and that's why I feel like Borderlands 4 feels such a different game from the rest, is simply because the level design really carried. It really changed the formula of how their gameplay is, along with how they formatted their side quests, and obviously they add more gameplay features for the game and also with its content. So it all meshed well together. I don't understand that necessarily, and again, I'm not trying to cause hate to certain creators or people who have those certain opinions. I'm also just trying to understand it because it's just quite baffling of how someone would think that, because it's like, what else would you want the series to do? What can they do at this point? Because I think a natural evolution of it, and I did talk about this in my previous reaction videos when it came down to Borderlands 4, is about melee combat, and they actually did it here for this game. Because if I wanted to see this whole game, this whole series, progress much more with its combat, I actually want to see melee combat, because they've been kind of implementing it since the first game. But traditionally, you don't really pick up a lot of melee weapons. There's no actual melee weapons. You kind of do it with your specials, your action skills or whatever. So I was really wondering if this game will actually do that. So when I saw Rafa, because that's a clear indication that they actually took the time to put some melee combat in the game, I'm like, this is it. Like, they're actually trying to really switch it up in a way. And I think also, the open world is also another natural evolution of the series, just because they've been trying to kind of do it since the first game with their open zone areas, and you roam around, you drive around and explore these maps. Although these maps aren't gigantic, I thought the little exploration was nice in the previous games. But other than that, I don't know what else they could have done. That's why I was very curious with 4, because I felt like Borderlands 3's gameplay already reached that peak. And it's funny because a lot of the little free roaming aspects that you see now in Borderlands 4, we kind of saw like a little bit of a glimpse of that in 3. But I just wasn't as like fond of it, since, the game is linear as a whole. It's still linear at the end of the day. It's just more so you're just exploring through open zone maps, and I just kind of want to get right into the gameplay instead, in boss fights. So with that being said, with all the open world discussion that I just brought up, let's talk about the side quests, because everywhere you go, there is content. There is actual content everywhere. This is not just something I found baffling for this game, because of how people responded and reacted to the amount of content there is in a video game. This happened very similar to, many other RPGs that are out there, but a recent RPG that I personally played, which was the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth launch, where everyone realized is that there's just so much little content to do, or not little content, but they didn't even realize that there's actual so much content in the game to go through, because you do all these little sort of side content, and it doesn't really take up a lot of your time, to be honest with you, which is why I say like little content. And people were very like astonished with how much content there is, to the point where they didn't want to have a lot of content anymore in their games. And this is like kind of a recurring discussion, because people do say that games don't need to be 100 hours. And I agree with that. Like, you don't need to force a game to be 100 hours, but if the developers want the game to be a certain way, with a certain amount of hours for certain content, just because that is their direction, I wouldn't mind it either. Because in the end of the day, why are we rushing to finish up all the content? I thought the point of purchasing, and for you guys to avoid purchasing future games or other games, because I mean, it's funny, like, we're in a crisis right now where people don't want to spend the $70, which is great. As much as it is reasonable to the industry, as a consumer, it sucks that a lot of games are raising in price, especially in an economy that we are currently in right now. And it sucks that a lot of games are very short-lived. Some games, not every game, don't have that replayability anymore. Sometimes games are just meant for a one-time playthrough, and you move on to whatever game is coming out. So the fact that we are getting some games that actually have content, but people still want to skim through it, shows a sign to the industry that maybe the consumers no longer want to have all these sort of content. And I get it. People want quality content, like great quality content. I also think there's another issue that lies beneath all this, which is your guys' attention span. Or maybe not you guys, but others' attention span. But I also find it funny when people complain when games have a lot of content for that price, because I thought the point is to invest into games that will make you happy for the long run. Because, you know, like, here's the thing, we're so blessed to have so many video games and consume them in so little time compared to how it was in the 90s or even 2000s. Like, I feel like a lot of games, especially this year's, coming left to right, and these are big AAA games. These are more expensive games compared to way back then. And I guess people could debate, like, yeah, you know, there was a lot of games coming out like way back then as well, left to right, but I feel like on this level and this scale and the accessibility with a lot of the games that we have, that is literally available on all these platforms, I just find it so silly. It's so silly that people complain that there's too much content. And I understand, like, people would point out, like, well, you know, games don't need to be so bloated because it could ruin potentially, you know, when it comes to story related content or just the overall quality of the game. But here's the thing, typically with a lot of games, including the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Borderlands 4, is that you don't need to do the side content. You could always do it later, which is why in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, they literally have a chapter select for you to go through on which part of the game that you want to experience and re-experience, you know, when it comes to certain side content once you beat the game. And in Borderlands 4, again, I'm like almost 30 hours into the game, and I felt like I did a lot of side content, honestly. I did a lot of side content, and yet there is still much more to do. And the thing is, with how Borderlands side content is written, I don't feel like you're gonna be missing out on much. They're very consistent on wherever you are at. I think that's a big quality trait that this game actually has. You have the option sometimes to go for the main story. You have the option to always switch to difficulty if things get rough. I feel like I have so much options in the game, so it's like, okay, what I love about Borderlands 4 with its open world is that, or let's say if I'm burnt out with doing all the side content, I'll just move on to the main story, or I'll move on to the other things that I haven't personally done, or I'll do more exploration. I like how I could just keep switching different styles of gameplay throughout this one game to still have an enjoyable experience. Like, there's really no such thing as too much content. Just sit down and enjoy. Just enjoy the game. Why is there such a rush? There's no need to be in a rush to play these games. I think as much as social media is also, like, it is a blessing, but it's also, it could still be very harmful because it ruins your perception on how you consume things. Let's say if I was a kid, or if like a teenager, and I saved up my money just to purchase one game for this year, or several games, like a few games for this year, and I choose Borderlands 4, I would be very thankful. And I'm not going to be talking about the performance in this video, by the way. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. We're not going to be talking about performance because I think a lot of people online get the point. Like, yeah, the game is not the best currently, but let's just say in a perfect world, the game is running fine, and I bought the game as a teenager. I would be so happy because I'm like, yeah, I could actually play the game now throughout the whole year if I wanted to. I could take my sweet time and enjoy the game for what it is, especially it took them 6 years to create this. I'm just gonna be soaking it all in. It's so funny too because, you know, people wait for these games for so long, whether it is a remake or just a whole new game in general, right? People end up like speed running it on the first day, and then once they're done, they're like, oh man, this game got no content. You know, it's like, imagine waiting years just to finish the game in like 5 hours or 10 hours, or let's just say 20 hours within that same week. It's like, wow. Well, now you can't really savor what you've been really highly anticipating for. I just feel like expectations are no longer met because of how people are consuming certain things, where it creates a standard where it's not even as realistic anymore. It's also so funny too because I also heard that this game, compared to the previous titles that we had recently, we actually have endgame content, actual endgame content to go through. Now I don't know how much there is, but apparently this definitely feels like the full package for Borderlands 4. In the end of the day, it's personal preference. I understand that. So if you want to experience the endgame content and you're just about that, that is fine. But just speaking objectively, why would someone go through the whole entire game and rush through it, go through like the hours of content that you could just enjoy, sit down and enjoy, when endgame is just waiting for you? Once you beat the game, you'll have plenty of other content to go through later on, and then you could play as the other characters after your first playthrough. So there's just a lot of replayability. What is going on with our attention spans? What is happening? It's okay. It's okay to take time and play the game. Let's just do that. I just wanted to make this video because it's so important to not get pressured despite how many releases are coming in. Because let's just say if I wasn't a content creator, I'm going to be really I'm actually taking my sweet time playing Borderlands 4, but I kind of have to pick up the pace because, you know, Silent Hill F is this week, and obviously I want to enjoy Silent Hill F, and as a content creator, I got to be on it. But if I was just a regular consumer of video games, if I was just a normal person just playing video games, I would be so overjoyed with the amount of gameplay that I could just play throughout the rest of the year now. Just sit down, enjoy your game. You paid your hard-earned money for it. Why rush it? Savor the moment. Get on with it. You don't need to. And I understand that, you know, when it comes to Borderlands 4, sometimes the difficulty, there could be a difficulty gap if you don't grind out the side quests. But the thing is, it's not as bad. It's not the end of the world. And you could always switch your difficulty if you want to keep moving on. You have plenty of options to approach the game in different ways, especially when it comes to progressing the game. There's a lot of great life quality stuff in Borderlands 4, which I really enjoyed a lot, along with its gameplay. I mean, its overall gameplay I've just been enjoying. It's just addicting. It's like I'm back in the 2010s of me experiencing the whole Borderlands franchise when it was at its prime. I just wanted to put that out there just because I just feel such a disconnect with a lot of gamers nowadays and on what they complain on. You know, when it comes to like, oh, the graphics don't look good enough, or there's too much content in a video game, or hey, why is this game the same? You know, why hasn't the game really changed a lot? Which is actually a valid opinion, you know, when it comes to like Pokemon, right? Because we have seen so many other turn-based games out there that really switch up the formula of turn-based RPGs. So I understand that. And Pokemon has been the same game for a long time. I have like big criticisms when it comes to Pokemon, which is why I end up leaving after Pokemon Black and White. But anyway, like I said, when it comes to a first-person shooter like Borderlands, what can they really do to really change it and still stick to that genre? Because eventually I feel like they're gonna lean, it's not just gonna become a shooter, but it'll also become somewhat a melee type of game now, an action game of you wielding swords and all these sort of stuff later down the line, especially if people are enjoying the whole Rafa and Amon gameplay. They're probably going to expand much more onto that. That's like honestly the next evolution I see for Borderlands, because what else can Borderlands do for 5? Because they went so ambitious for 4, so what are they going to do for 5 now? You know, so I'm just very curious about that. Just think about it. What can they really do that will impress the masses? That's why when I came into 4, I just expected the typical Borderlands gameplay. But apparently that just wasn't enough for people. They wanted the game to be really, really different. Like, that's why I just couldn't understand. I understand, okay, with the story when it came to Borderlands 3, but with the gameplay, I didn't understand that. I don't know why people weren't as satisfied. I read some comments about the gameplay when it came to 3, and people just weren't as satisfied, apparently. So I don't know. I don't know what what it did so differently compared to 2 or 1. But alright, y'all. Remember to hype up the video, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't yet. I want to hear your guys' opinions when it comes to this. Just wanted to sit down and talk about Borderlands 4 with you guys as I'm currently enjoying the game. I just really wanted to sit down and express my thoughts about this because I've kind of held it back for quite some time because this topic really came into mind about the whole Final Fantasy VII Rebirth shenanigans when it came to too much content. You know, because the thing is with Rebirth, there's a lot of FOMO happening, but the thing is there's a lot of great quality. There is, well, not the greatest quality, but there is good quality content in the side content, and I 100% basically everything. So that's how you know I enjoyed the game. I didn't think it was horrible. If I thought it was horrible, then I would have moved on and just did the main story stuff, which is what I'm doing with Borderlands 4. I don't think it's as horrible, like with what people are saying with the too much content. Give me all the content so I don't have to buy like the next Borderlands game in the next few years. But like the fact that I have like three more playthroughs to do later down the line just to see how different the other characters are. The replayability is so important. How we forgot about enjoying our games and replaying them. But alright, I gotta stop yapping. Let's end the video. Peace. Have a good one, y'all.